Hello, welcome back to Single Mom on a Farm. If you're new here, I'm Marcy. I have 10 kids, and I think they're all pretty good, healthy eaters. And so today I'm going to talk about how to get your kids to eat real food and choose healthier options. I'm going to try to address those who have little kids and are just starting out. You might have a little bit more control over what you feed your kids, they might be more receptive to it. I also want to address those with teenagers or college kids or adult children. There might be a little bit more pushback of suddenly changing your eating habits. I'm going to just throw out a bunch of tips that I have that come into my mind whenever they come into my mind, and hopefully answer all of your questions. If you have any more, just feel free to email them to me, marcy@singlemomonafarm.com. I'm happy to help with this. I presume I'm talking to the person who does the grocery shopping, like the mom or whoever does the shopping. And so the easiest thing, my first tip, is to remember that you control the food that comes into your house. So sometimes I'm like, guys, stop eating all the chips. And I'm just wishing like we didn't have those. And then I think it's my fault. Who bought the groceries? I did. So it's my fault that the chips are in my house or the cookies or whatever it is that I don't want in the house. It's hard for me too. You're at the store and you think, oh, this is a great deal. I want to have these on hand. They're on sale. It'll go good with this meal, whatever it is. And so it's just on us. It might be harder if you have little kids and you're grocery shopping with them because they want everything and you're finally like, just whatever, just get it, let's get home. I do have some tips for shopping with little kids on my blog. I wrote a whole article about it several years ago when I was going through it. I took my kids to the store with me all the time, like all the time. Now, luckily, we have, like you can order online and just pick up your groceries at Walmart or most grocery stores, or you can even have delivery, which is just amazing. Like I totally wish I had that when I had little kids, but I taught them how to shop. So it is good that I've taught them how to shop. So look at that article. I won't mention everything here in this video, but go ahead and look at that on my blog. The first question I want to address is a viewer asked me, how do I switch carrots for chips? I mentioned that in my last video that we just kind of stopped having chips with our sandwiches and had carrots instead. And there's several different answers you could do for that. One is you could just go cold turkey, say, I'm not buying chips anymore. They're not healthy for you. They got vegetable oils. You could say, I read this book that's bad for you, that vegetable oils are bad for you. I just read Dark Calories recently, and it talks all about vegetable oils. And so I'm going to be starting to decrease our chip supply also. Because sometimes we get in the habit of chips, especially in the summer. I tend to buy and allow like Pringles and Sun Chips kind of chips from in the summertime when we're eating more sandwiches and grilling hamburgers outside, and just having those kinds of foods because we're working outside all day. And I might just say, send one kid in to go make some grilled cheese sandwiches for everybody, and then like just grab a bag of chips. And then and also our picnics are just so easy to bring. So I'm going to try to cut back on a little bit but in the past, that was my rule, is I allowed them in the summer. That felt like there was a summertime food. And in the winter, we ate inside. If we did eat hot sandwiches, I would make our own kinds of chips or eat like a hot broccoli, cooked carrots and broccoli, some cooked vegetables with it. So you can use that rule also to say, hey, we're not doing it in the winter, but we will in the summer for picnics and make it a little bit more of a special occasion. That's one option. Another option is you can still buy the chips and allow them as an option on the table to get, and then also have like 3 or 4 other sides to help fill them up. So there's like, carrots and radishes and little tomatoes, broccoli, just a bunch of raw or cooked vegetables to go with it, and some fruits also. You can remember to make them really healthy, the sandwiches themselves, so that that's really filling. If you're just eating a white bread or, the kind of the wheat bread that's kind of dyed wheat, they're not going to be very healthy. And so they're filling, they're going to want more chips and things to go with it. So get like Dave's Killer Bread with a lot of fiber in it, or homemade sourdough bread is really good on sandwiches. And as filling as you can, and maybe as big as you can. Put the lettuce and tomatoes on it, and maybe some healthy bacon on it. Healthy, I just meant like with no nitrates in it. And then, like a big old sandwich, they're not going to have room for as many chips at least. Especially if you salt it. I sprinkle a little salt on my sandwiches, and it makes me take away that craving of just wanting the salt from the chips. And that might help your kids too, especially if they're like big teenagers who, would like a lot of chips. And like I said, a lot of the sides. Or you can go cold turkey and just say, we're not buying that anymore. So those are some options. Hopefully that helps you with cutting out some of the chips and replacing them. my kids have always been really good at just kind of cleaning your plates. I think we had that expectation. I grew up with the expectation of you eat everything that's on your plate. And so um, we kind of had that with our kids. But we were never forced to eat everything on our plate, like my family. My mom always saying, don't take more than you can eat. We, served ourselves at the dinner table. We passed the dishes growing up, and it was always like, don't take more than you can eat. And you can always have seconds. You can always have seconds. And so I always kind of knew we're supposed to eat everything we take as kind of a responsibility and learning about yourself. How much does my body want? And she was like, listen to your body. I know you're starving now, but just take a little bit so there's enough for everybody. And if there's seconds, you can have seconds. So I think that was a really good balance of, yes, you eat everything on your plate, but you learn to not take as much, more than you think you can eat. But we're also always allowed to like give it to a sibling or my dad, like, hey, I'm full. Dad, do you want this? So, I've kind of expected that on my kids. I can't remember actually like saying it, that my kids are just always eating everything on their plates. Except, if they don't want it, then I'm just like, I don't want this. I say, okay, see if somebody else does. There always is, because we have so many kids. There's always the teenagers that want the food. There are a few little exceptions, as when I make something that's totally disgusting. So every once in a while, like this year, we're making food from different countries. And so the food can be very interesting. And I'll be like, oh my gosh, guys, this is not even very good. But I'm trying it. I'm going to try it. And, I'm going to eat it anyway. Or this is too bad. Let's just all give this to the chickens. And so we're allowed to do that. If it's unhealthy, like it's just like a hot dog or white bread, anything, just anything that's processed from a different country or at a potluck or at our house, I say you do not have to finish it, because that is just food that's not even good for you. So don't worry about that. But if it is healthy, like broccoli or something like that, then I teach them the value of the broccoli, like what it's good for, how it's beneficial to them, and just have them eat like 2 or 3 pieces. Like just try 1 or 2 pieces, and if you don't want it, I'll eat the rest, because broccoli is really good for me and I want to feel great. Or give it to a sibling, or if it's mushy by then and cold, then they can put it in the chicken bucket. That's how I help them try to eat everything that's on their plate. But again, we do very small servings. I think kids parents put too much food on their kids' plates and expect them to eat it all. So don't do that. Just give them teensy tiny servings so that they'll feel good that they ate and tried new things. So also, to help them eat everything on their plate, is to have really predictable meal times. So we eat breakfast every morning by 8, and then we have lunch at 11 and snack time at 2 and dinner at 5. And I picked these times because for like 20 years, I was pregnant and nursing. And I was always hungry by like 10:30 in the morning. After eating breakfast, I was hungry a lot. I used to exercise in the morning, and I'm running around doing homeschooling and everything. That's just when I was hungry. And I first started figuring this out, when I just had like the 1 or 2 babies, that at 10:30, you could eat like an orange, but like that wasn't enough. I always wanted like protein and carbs and like just, a meal. And so if I ate then it kind of ruined my lunch. And then I was like not hungry for lunch, or it just didn't work out. So that's just what works for me. And also the toddlers, they were always hungry by then. And so if I start feeding them, then the teenagers are coming in and wanting some cheese and crackers or whatever. And I'm like, just save room for lunch. So we just eat an early lunch. And now we don't really have to, because I don't have more toddlers. I'm not pregnant. But it still pretty much works out. If sometimes when we're working on a project, we'll eat like 11:30. But any time past that, it just seems like all of a sudden we're starting to fight. And it does take us a while to get our lunch. We always do leftovers for lunchtime. Anything in the fridge from last night or the night before, people just grab it and fix their own plates. I do not fix a nice lunch, hardly ever, because I already have to fix every single dinner, like year round. We never eat out. We never go to people's houses, very rarely. So I feel like that's enough meal planning for me. But they're also allowed to like make sandwiches, quesadillas, whatever. I encourage leftovers, but this is getting off a little bit. But I guess there's a point of kids are allowed to make their own lunches a lot, and learning to choose healthy things, and so they're really hands-on into their food. They're not just at school all day just given food. They know what's in the fridge and cupboards, and they know how to make good selections. We talk about it a lot. So anyway, so the meals. What I was saying is, so we eat lunch at like 11, and then a snack at 2. And so at snack time, the kids are usually off playing, and I just put this food on the table. So sometimes I'll make like a plate of celery with peanut butter and raisins on it, and I'll just leave it on the table, and the kids can come and grab some anytime they want, anytime they're passing through the kitchen. Lots of the time, it feels like they're outside. Kids are running through the house to go to the bathroom, and they just see the healthy food and they'll grab it and realize they're hungry. So this makes it so that they're not eating too close to dinner time. So, or like I love just keep a bowl of raw almonds on the table, or blueberries. I'll cut up oranges like the monkey bites kinds, and I'll cut up some bananas, like just about 2 inches, just little pieces of banana, like maybe cut a banana into thirds, and then you just have it, peel it and eat it, or even leave little toothpicks in it because they'll just walk by and grab it and pop it in their mouth. I'll do like rice cakes with a bunch of different toppings on it, hummus and peanut butter. You can do like some cream cheese and some chopped up cucumbers from our garden. We have it. I just stick things out there, and it's okay if they might not like it. They might try some. Sometimes I'll even cut it in halves or fourths so that they can just try a bite of it. And they have to be exposed several times. So like maybe it is a new topping, then they might not love it right away. They might, or they might. But I'll keep just trying it every once in a while, and they'll come to just familiarize it with the fun thing that they're having. If they're having a great time outside, they run in and see this, they'll be like, great, this, they associate it with the fun day that they had the last time they ate it. And it helps their taste buds. Most of the time for my snacks, it's just like whatever I need to use up. So like yesterday I got these apples on the produce clearance rack, and so that's what I'm going to do today is like cut them up, stick them out there with peanut butter or little cheese cubes that I've sliced up, or I might just put them into applesauce and then put bowls of applesauce out so that kids can just come by and take some. So that's how I get them to eat a healthy snack, and I try to do it like 2 to 2:30, not too close to dinner time. I usually keep juice shakes, I call them juice shakes or smoothies, in the fridge, so that they can always have a lot of fruits and vegetables. I don't do any protein powders. I feel like that's too processed, but I do plain organic yogurt. I always did homemade yogurt until we lost our cow. But just fruits and vegetables, mostly from our garden, that are in the freezer now that it's winter time. This is like the kale from our garden, and cucumbers that I've ground up in there with a bunch of berries from our garden. But you can just do any frozen berries. Cherries, cranberries are awesome to put in juice shakes because you don't eat much cranberries like plain. Just frozen cranberries. Anyway, I have a recipe on my blog for that. And I keep it in like a sippy cup like this in the fridge. And I've noticed some of the kids doing that lately too, because then you can just, you're hungry, you open it up and take some sips and put it back. You don't have to even get a cup out while you're thinking about what else to have. For a few processed foods, I do keep single-size yogurts in the fridge, and these are the ones that I like the most. They're a Noosa brand. I don't know. I might change my mind, like in another year. By the time you watch this, you'll be like, oh, I found something that's bad for you on here. But so far, it just has the whole milk, cane sugar, vanilla, wildflower honey. So I like that it doesn't have high fructose corn syrup, no food dyes, nothing like that. So we kind of like these ones. But they're kind of a treat. They don't have one every day, but I'll keep them in there for times like if I am out of town, or not out of town, out of the house, like an appointment or something, they can get one themselves. Like they know that they can have these because they're kids. They're not going to probably fix themselves a healthy snack. So that's why I just put it out there. Okay, sorry if I talked too long about snacks. So for dinner, we usually eat at 5, and I do, put out lots of fruits and vegetables with the dinner, and a really healthy dinner every night. And I make sure that they're hungry. So I don't let them have snacks before because I've already fed them the snack. So I feel like they are all really good eaters because they're hungry at dinner time. My kids help each have a night that they help cook the dinner. I feel like that's really helpful. So you can get your kids involved in cooking, then that is fantastic. If you can get them planning recipes, ordering the groceries online, or picking things up at the store, or at least being in the kitchen, even if they're teenagers. My kids always had a night where they had to help with the dinner. If they're super busy, like in plays, I'm thinking my drivers, when they were busy with plays or work, then I didn't have them plan the dinner as much. They would just like show up and expected to help. Even if I'm almost done, they still have to set the table and put the food on. If I already picked the dinner, like saying we're having this casserole, then I just say, pick the fruit, vegetable, and please put a fruit, vegetable, and drink on the table. So they were allowed to pick those. And I think even letting them have those little options, even starting at age 3, which fruit and vegetable would you like to go with your dinner, honey? And they pick anything. In the summer, it's mostly fresh, either out of our fridge or our garden or something. But like fresh, raw fruits and vegetables. So they get one of each. And in the winter, they can do canned goods, whether we've canned it or from the store, or like hot, cooked broccoli or something like that. So they can pick a canned fruit and a canned vegetable if they want to. But having them involved in that they know a main dish always has at least 1 or 2 fruits and vegetables to go with the sides. And talking about the meal while you make it is really awesome. It's, even if they're teenagers, you might, don't worry about sounding stupid or anything. I'll say, hey, can you stir this meat around while they're cooking the ground beef? And then I'll say, hey, what can you add? Just pour in a bit some quinoa with it. If you cook quinoa right in with the ground beef, like it just cooks. You don't have to cook it separately or anything. And I was like, hey, did you know quinoa is a complete protein? It's going to really help you build up that muscle and tissue for your basketball or whatever you're doing, and they're learning a little bit of how good quinoa is. I'll say it's also super cheap. It's great that it's just on the shelf. Like meat, you've got to always keep in the refrigerator, so you can just add it to anything all the time. And it's great like for emergencies. Like you just, keep it for a couple years or whatever. So I just mentioned all these, like the price of things and their shelf life and how convenient they are and how easy it is to add, and then like the nutritional value. I might ask them questions like, how many vegetables do you think we could fit in this chili? I mean, it might sound stupid to your teenagers, but for anyone like under 14, it's pretty cool. Or like, I don't know, 2. And you're like, no, I think we could do, maybe let's try 4. Let's try 5. And you're just cutting up some zucchini and squash and bell peppers and tomatoes. And you just have them count. How many vegetables can we stick in this chili? You can talk about the nutritional value of the meat and the protein and the beans. Talk about the benefits of grass-fed ground beef versus regular ground beef, and teach them, how cows are meant to be out on the grass, eating grass all the time in the pastures and not confined in a barn. The more you talk about it, the more it's just familiar talk in the house. You're not preaching at them. You're just mentioning things. Talk about how you feel. Like, oh, I feel kind of sluggish after eating that donut, and I'm going to make better choices in the future. Or this gives me lots of good energy. We make like energy bites and stuff. We call them hyper bites because we felt like so hyper and energetic. So we're always like, I want to feel good today. I'm going to make a good choice. I'm going to eat this. Just talking about it like that. Sometimes I mention, like, I want a good quality of life. Like, I don't care if I don't live to 100. I'm not trying to get to live to 100. I'm trying to have a good quality of life for as long as I can. I don't want to live to 100 but have, be sickly by 60. Like that, it's not going to be very fun. So I want to feel good for as long as I can. And I tell my kids, I don't want you to have to take care of me. I want to be able to play with my grandkids and be helpful to you. I want to be able to serve you in the community. I want to be the one that's out there, helping other people take out their trash and opening doors for people and stuff, like into my 90s. So mentioning things like that, the benefits of yourself. I want to feel good, and asking them, how does that make you feel? Or if they have a headache, say, well, what do you think caused that headache? Do you think, and not like blaming them, like, oh, you shouldn't have eaten so many chips, you shouldn't have had that donut, but just saying, do you notice anything yourself? And helping them be in tune with their own bodies. Stop when you feel full. How is that making you feel tired? Does that give you good, happy energy? Are you feeling grouchy, cranky, angry? Then let's make some really good choices to help us have a better day. And my last tip is, like, besides having them help plan the meals and cook the meals, have them grow the food. And I know you probably already all heard this also. So having a big garden is really great. In Utah, we rented a house and we could not have a garden there, but neighbors down the road did, and they offered us to plant anything we wanted in their yard. And the first year I was like, oh, I don't want to impose, I said no. And then after I got really fixed on fresh produce and growing your own food, I was like, sure, we'll do it. So it was several houses down. We had to climb over this huge wall to get there, but we did it anyway. We went down there and we would buy our own plants and our own seeds and grow them in his garden. And it was very, very valuable to learn from a seasoned gardener, for my kids to be around a grandfatherly figure like that, because they've never had one that lived close to us. So there was a lot of benefits. So You can do that. See if you can have a plot in a community garden or a neighbor's garden. And elderly people just love for you to help with their garden. Maybe they'll do all the planting and you just can help come pick and water and weed sometimes because they don't want to eat all that food. They just don't want to give up planting all their food. You can plant a few things like in your windowsills or in a sunny spot in your house, your balcony. If you're in an apartment, just try to find anything, even little things just like herbs. If that's all you have to do to start with, just start with a basil plant. That they're pretty cheap at the store, like $4, and you can just be snipping off the basil. You can dry it for future, and it just keeps growing back. And you can put it in all kinds of meals. If you can't grow your own food, try to take your kids to like farmers markets or like the next place where they can see it's outdoors usually, and so that just adds an added element of fresh that you're not going to get in the grocery store. It could be that it looks like the same food, but you're outside and you're just going around. Maybe there's tables with lots of people, and you can see who grew the food or however it's set up. Take your kids to the farmers markets and load up on a bunch of fruits and vegetables. Whatever you can't eat, because you always buy too much probably, then cut it up and stick it in the freezer and bring it out. Say, hey, do you guys remember buying this at the farmer's market? This squash, let's put it in an egg casserole this morning. And let's see how many other vegetables we can fit in this egg casserole. If you can't go to farmers markets or grow your own food, you can like go to strawberry patches or do cherry picking, apples. Just reach out, maybe once a season. Maybe it's too far away. It's maybe they even cost more than at the store. So maybe you can only budget once a season and just try to go pick one thing this year and teach your kids where it grows, how it's grown, and the satisfaction of picking it yourself and seeing that and feeling it and smelling it. I mean, just go into a cherry orchard and it just smells heavenly, or a strawberry patch, just all these strawberries everywhere. So that's another way to get your kids more involved with food. I am going to try to do another video about, I can't remember the name of it now, but it's how food looks like the organs that they support. And it's a really, really cool video. I'm going to try to make it up, but it's going to take me a lot of work. So I got to buy all this food and figure out how to present it to you. And when I get that done, then maybe that will help your kids also want to choose healthy foods. I think education is the most important thing. So if you can leave books lying around the house about healthy eating that they want to pick up, like the 100 Days of Real Food has a lot of great pictures and a story in it. I don't know. I started this when my oldest was 17 and my baby was 3 months old. So the first few kids, I felt like they're not going to grow up like this. They grew up on a little bit more packaged foods than real foods. But I was so surprised and excited that Kylie, so she went off to college the next year and she wrote a paper about real food. And she also wrote a paper about the benefits of raw milk. And so I was like, yes, like something got into her. And she's like a really good, healthy eater now. Some of my other college kids, like when they cook for themselves, which they do mostly, then they do make really good choices. But like at a party, they might still eat a lot of pizza or hot dogs or something like I wouldn't do. I just still avoid processed foods even out. Then they just don't like go to those events, or I just don't eat them at the events. And we can all do better. And then these other 5 or 6 kids at home, I feel like they're starting to make good choices, and I feel like they'll have even a better solid foundation. And I teach them what to look for at events. Like look for a chili that has the most vegetables in it, or figure out who made them and think, are they usually healthy eater people, or do you think they just like bought this at Wendy's and dumped it in their crock pot? And to make healthy choices along with the chili. So tonight is like a chili event at the like a youth activities having chili. So I'm like, okay, that's probably a good thing. At least it's not pizza or hot dogs. Hopefully, like they're homemade chilies. I'm not sure. So when in doubt, like at least reach for the salads to go with it and skip the dressings. See if there's any like carrots, apples, like cheese, like regular, foods that that are real food. And maybe skip the desserts or just have one. At first, there might be some pushback if you say we're not eating pizza every Friday night, we're going to start making it ourselves. They might think this is not fun, but just make it fun anyway. If you have to make it yourself the first time because they don't want to join in, then do that. And hopefully the coming weeks, they'll all join in. And they forget pretty fast. Like pretty soon, after a couple months, they'll forget that they ever bought store-bought pizza. Or you can just say, hey, we're gonna have a rule of only buying it once a month, and the rest of the weeks, we're gonna make it ourselves because I want to use whole grains in our crust and real cheese and real toppings without nitrates and things like that. Explain the reasonings why. But they will forget that. They'll learn new routines, especially if you're cheerful about it, because food is so much about memories and what they feel, not necessarily how it tastes. So if you can make it really fun and really warm and loving, then they will appreciate it more. It's kind of the same thing with the fruit snacks. If you've always kept fruit snacks in your bag, the kids might just reach for those because that's just a comforting food that they always eat sitting watching a sibling soccer game. And just stop bringing them, stop buying them. Just say, oh, I got carrot slices or apple slices. And if you want to teach them why they're healthier, go ahead. And if you don't, just leave it at that. Just be reading your book and say, oh, I got some carrot slices. And, that's all we got. And just keep doing that. And after a few times, they might say, oh, yeah, we don't have any more fruit snacks. And that's all we got. And just stay matter of fact. Don't say, oh, I'm so sorry, we're not buying those anymore. I feel bad for you. Just say, I have carrots and apples. You may choose which one you want and go back to reading your book. And kind of stay neutral about it. And pretty soon, they will just always come to expect apples and carrots. And you'll realize they were kind of just addicted to those fruit snacks because they could go through 3 packs just sitting there during the soccer game. And they're really not necessary. It doesn't take that much longer to cut up some fruit and stick it in, or make a little trail mix and stick it in your purse or diaper bag. And they'll come to find that like soccer games are really fun with these nutritious snacks that you brought them and some bottled water or a healthy juice box. And they don't need the sodas or other foods that they came to associate with those activities. I hope this answered your questions. I don't know what else I'm missing. Probably a lot of extra tips. Stay positive, I think, and just talk to your kids about why you want to eat healthy, that you're proud of them. Never shame them. Say, why are you eating that? Or that's bad for you, or anything like that. We all make, bad choices or ones that we might regret, like eating something and it's just not good. And I talk about that a lot myself. I was like, sure, I want to try a bite of this. I was like, this just tastes fake. I don't want it anymore. And most of the time I just throw it away if it's a processed cookie or something like that has no nutritional value. Why even give it to anybody else? I encourage them to just have like one piece of candy after Halloween, after a meal, like that's fine. And we try to stay away from red food dyes, and we talk about the dangers of that, and that a lot of other countries have already banned food dyes. And so why is America okay with it? Sometimes I listen to podcasts about like food dyes and healthy foods. There's one about 1,000 Hours Outside. It's like my favorite podcast. It talks about tons of stuff like technology on kids and playing outside and healthy foods, healthy exercise. So sometimes they'll just hear that, and I'll be like, oh, I heard this on the podcast, not to eat so many of these vegetable oils. Teaching your kids to cook is just a great skill to have. Be proud of them. Sometimes just leave it all to them. Say, hey, can you make the cornbread? I got the chili in the crock pot. Please follow this recipe for cornbread. I teach them I only have wheat flour that I usually freshly grind myself, so we don't have a wheat grinder right now. And so I teach them benefits of why freshly ground wheat is the best. I've always taught them to add like extra flax seeds and hemp seeds that I have ground up, and chia seeds to like every breaded like bread item, and granolas and stuff. So like they already know those things. They know we eat our fresh eggs, when we're cooking. So like all of those things are like a substitute for a packaged corn mix or even a regular standard recipe made with the white flour and like vegetable oil. We'll use coconut oil. So they already know the healthy substitutions. We use honey instead of processed refined sugar. So I'll just give them that, like, hey, can you make that? The chili's in the crock pot. I got to go outside and pull some weeds. Or I can offer them, would you like to pull weeds or make the cornbread? Sometimes they usually pick the cornbread. Anyway, giving them lots of opportunities to cook, being proud of them, asking them how they feel when they're eating. I hope this helps. Sorry, I like to ramble, but thanks so much for watching. Shoot me with any questions you got, and have a great day. Bye-bye.